The elephant in the room is that I'm not a therapist. And so many of you are carrying these childhood wounds, right? That's why you have that inner critic. That's why you're struggling with perfectionism. That's why you struggle with these negative thought patterns. You're carrying these little t and big T traumas. You are battling the what ifs, arguing with people in your head. You have things you're trying to heal from. You want your nervous system to finally be calm so you can slow down and stop rushing through your days, feeling like you're rushing even when you're not behind. And there's this struggle to prove your worth, try to be perfect and keep the peace so you can make other people happy. And all of that comes back to this childhood trauma, the way that people bullied you, or the relationship problems that you had, the family issues, the things you went through. And the elephant in the room is, what makes me qualified to help you with any of that or talk about those wounds? And that's what we're going to discuss today, as well as the difference between coaching and therapy and when you might need one or the other or both. Do you want to heal your relationship with yourself and grow closer to God, but anxiety, perfectionism, and trust issues make connection feel hard and unsafe? If you said yes, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Micaiah Gray, a Christian woman, wife, and mom. After years of struggling, I learned the secret to healing from my past so I could finally feel secure, loved, and confident. If you're ready to see yourself the way God does, fully trust in the Lord with all your heart, and finally connect deeply with others, then grab your journal, tea, and a pen, because I'm about to speak so much life into you, friend. The truth is that I can't heal your childhood trauma. I can't heal anything. I am not God. Only God can heal you. And I think that is the most important thing to start this episode with, is that you can't heal yourself, and I can't heal you, and nobody else can heal you. There is no special magical cure. And that's not to say that there isn't things that we can do, because there absolutely is things that we can do, but it is not in our strength that you will ever be healed. It's not in our smarts that you will ever be healed. If we ever have a good idea, it's because it was first a God idea. All of our good ideas come from God. All of our healing tools come from God. And so in the end, it is just important for us all to note and to mention for this episode that it is God who is the healer. And I think that is really what's going to lay a solid foundation for the rest of this episode. So let's lean on Him and heal with Him, which is why I say over and over again that this podcast is for women on a healing journey with God, because the with God part is the most important part. Okay, so let's just be honest. You're carrying more than mindset issues, right? Like, those mindset issues that you're carrying came from somewhere. They're not coincidental. They didn't just like show up one day for zero reasons. They're likely a result of long lasting patterns or multiple traumas or things that people said to you over and over again. And yes, Satan whispers things in our minds, but I think he also uses like people, situations, traumas. And so if that word trauma like doesn't resonate with you, just for the sake of this episode, I'm just going to define that when I say trauma, I don't always mean like a big T trauma, which is like a big traumatic life event that like is super, what you would think of as like clinically traumatic, is what most people think of traumatic things as, like a big T trauma. But there's also these little T traumas that are sometimes overlooked, and people think, oh, well, I don't have trauma. And sometimes people with big T traumas will still say that to me. But if, you know, like even having like a death in the family, like that's a trauma. If you lost someone close to you, that loss is traumatic. And honestly, anything that your brain can't find a reason for why it happened makes it traumatic to the brain. But that's, for the sake of this episode, that's what I'm meaning when I say trauma, is these losses, these betrayals, the abandonment wounds, the broken relationships, sometimes it is like assaults or more like abusive things, whether that's verbally or physically, sexually, etc., right? And I don't want to trigger anyone, so I'm not going to get into all of that, but I will just say that I know from personal experience that a lot of those insecurities of feeling like you're not good enough. You need to strive. You need to prove your worth. You need to try harder. You need to be perfect, do everything perfect. Like these standards, super high standards that you set for yourself, and these super harsh self-talk patterns where it's almost like you're hating yourself, like you're talking to yourself so harshly in ways that you would never talk to other people. And that a lot of times goes back to whatever that trauma was that you went through. And so the real question here is like, okay, why do I keep bringing these things up on the podcast? With the workshop, we brought it up on the workshop. If you didn't catch the replay, please go watch it. You still have time. Join us in the Facebook group and you can catch the replay. You can go to the Facebook group by typing into your search bar bit.ly/biblical healing group. And it's also linked in the show notes below. So go and watch that workshop replay if you haven't already. And I would still love to hear your thoughts on it and see your homework get posted in there so I can help you and support you in there. So back to what I was saying. First, I just want to say that I don't share my story. I haven't shared my story a ton on the podcast because I don't want to trigger anything for other people who maybe have gone through traumas. And I also don't ever want to get into a pattern of like oversharing, trauma jumping, or coming off as just resentful or bitter about things, because there's some ways I feel like that can be hindrance to you guys as you're on your healing journey. And so I do try to be very careful of what I share of my story. But lately the Lord's been convicting me about that because I feel like he's calling me to open up and share my story with you guys more. And I've been a little hesitant. And so I am stepping out in obedience today. And you might have noticed I posted a testimony episode. It was a short one, a little bonus episode not that long ago. I think it was last week as well. So if you didn't get to see that, that might be worth listening to. But when I'm talking about these things, I'm not talking about it from like a far off, distant perspective of like, I just Googled some stuff and read some books and now I'm going to show up and talk about trauma. Like, it wasn't like that at all. I lived it. I experienced it. I struggled with it. And then for pretty much my entire childhood, right up and still continuing into like those young adult years through like 19, age 20-ish. And then that's when things really started to improve from there. But just a recap of my story. So I was born into a family of addiction. My parents were both addicted to alcohol and drugs. And my dad was abusive, and they were not Christians. They weren't following the Lord. My grandma, however, was a Christian, and we would go to church with her sometimes. When I was 5, we got put into foster care, and there was some inappropriate behavior and things that had happened at a couple of our homes. And we felt very grateful because me and my sister got to stay together through our foster care homes, and we only switched between 2 different homes. We moved 3 different times, but it was only 2 homes. And I just heard a lot of horror stories, so I was just grateful for our experience, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I had already seen and heard and learned so many things before foster care that I should have never seen, heard, and learned, and then went into foster care and learned and experienced more things that were not age appropriate for me. And then after adoption, I was just very closed off, and I don't think anyone in my family realized how much I was struggling or what I had seen, what I had heard, what I was going through. There's a lot of things that I couldn't even remember because like they were just so traumatic. My memory had blocked them, and I didn't learn about things till I was later and older, and like looking through case files and learning more and talking to my birth parents. But there was things that I was carrying that just felt really heavy, and I, at a young age, just didn't think that I was worthy. I didn't think that I was beautiful. I don't know why, but I was just carrying this shame, this self-hatred. I thought that I was ugly, hideous. I didn't really have any friends. It's hard when you're moving a lot, but even past that point, when we would be settled in a school system for a while, um, we we never stopped moving, honestly. My whole childhood through the school system, we kept moving even post adoption. It just felt like we were switching schools or locations like every couple years. I don't think I ever stayed at a school more than 3 years. And so there was that aspect of it being difficult to make friends, but also just the fact that I was mature in like a different way than all the other kids in my grade or my classes, because I had seen things, known things, gone through things that they'd never experienced, and it did change me. It affected my ability to play, my ability to be creative, my ability to just be kid-like. I just didn't want to be a kid. I didn't find those things fun. I didn't want to go play. My mom would get so frustrated because all I ever wanted to do was like sit around and talk and listen with like grown-up conversations, and I didn't want to go play with the kids. It felt excruciating to me. Like I remember we had some pretty nice Barbie sets, like a beautiful Barbie house and a Barbie boat, and like my sister and our niece and nephew, who are really close in age to us, would all be playing and be fine, and I just had zero interest. It actually felt physically painful to go and play, and I still feel that way sometimes, where I struggle to play or sit down and do things that are more like quiet and focused activities. It's gotten a lot better now because I've done so much of the work, but it was excruciating back then. I had zero interest in it, and so moving right along, I just was struggling with these things throughout my childhood and growing up, and I didn't have like therapy at that time. I didn't have someone like helping me process any of it. I wasn't learning emotional regulation tools. I had a Bible and we went to church, and when we were in church, like I was thriving, but then there was also times where we would stop going to church. There was times where we had bad, experiences in certain churches, and through it all, we weren't really doing any like discipleship at home. Like I think there was times where my mom would pray or she would talk to us about certain things, but we weren't like reading the Bible, studying the Bible, like devoted to prayer. Like there was none of those stronger spiritual rhythms happening in our lives. And so I wasn't really being shaped as like a disciple of the Lord. And so I was like trying to grow in my relationship with the Lord, but it always felt like I had this barrier where it just felt like I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know who God was. I hadn't really learned about his character and all of those things. And so when I would go into the Bible and try to read it, I was like flying blind, and it was confusing, and I would just end up like not getting very far. And then into my preteen and teenage years, me and my mom just really started not getting along. And I think around age 10, it just really hit me one day that like, oh, my parents chose to not do what they needed to do to get us back, and it really just tanked my self-worth even further. I decided I wasn't good enough. There was a reason they didn't want me. It must be that something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm unlovable. Maybe that's why I'm struggling with like my mom now. It was all these things started going through my head, and I started having just like really dark thoughts, really like stuff that felt so shameful to carry and to struggle with. And so then throughout my teenage years, I continued to struggle with self-worth image, my self-worth and my self-image. And I didn't know who I was in Christ. At one point, I even completely walked away from God, said, I don't believe in God, I just believe in the universe, and like went to these new age practices. And so it was like I was seeking healing. I was seeking help with my mental health because I was getting to multiple points in my teenage years, especially like after 7th grade, where I was getting to like deep depression, horrible anxiety, having panic attacks. I was self-harming. I went through multiple instances of sexual assault. And so, without getting into much of the detail, it just wasn't a great environment, and I was struggling, and I moved out at 17, and then I got pregnant, and then I continued to struggle, and I got married. I graduated, then I got married. Right after we had the baby, we got married, and we struggled then again because my husband, well, first we were already trying to learn to be parents and then learn to be married. And then my husband went through multiple injuries. He had appendicitis, had to get his appendix removed. And then he injured his hand right after we got married. And so we went through a period, first and then another period right after he healed, where he couldn't even hold the baby, help with like regular stuff. He got laid off his job, and so we were just struggling. Now, again, I don't share any of that because I want you to feel bad for me or any of that. No, I actually am very grateful for everything that we've walked through, and every loss, every betrayal, every abandonment, every pain, every trauma. I've gotten to the place now where I can thank the Lord for those things because He has brought so much redemption from it, and I can see that He's bringing even more redemption from it, and I know that He's doing a great work through even those evil things that we had to walk through. And so it's not about feeling bad. It's that I want you to realize that I can empathize, I can sympathize, I can have compassion for the hard things you're walking through, because I might not have walked through exactly what you walked through, but I do know what it feels like to walk through what feels like the pit of despair and see no hope and feel like you're living in a cloud of fog and feel like life is just pain. And so I want to encourage you that there is more outside of the pain and that healing is possible. And God, if He did it for me, He will do it for you. I'm not any more special in His kingdom than you are. I'm not any more His daughter than you are. And so He will do it for you too. And that was what brings us to the point of this episode, which is really to discern if therapy or coaching is right for you, and what the difference is. So coaching is not a place where you're ever going to get a typical prescription, right? Like we might give you homework, but it's not going to be like a prescription, right? Whereas a therapist or a psychiatrist or a doctor, they are going to give you some sort of medication sometimes to help you with things. So if you're in a place where you just need like a quick fix because you're in like the depths of depression or the depths of anxiety and it's inhibiting your life, then there's no shame in going and getting that medication. And that is when, again, you're going to want to go to a therapist, a psychiatrist, or a doctor for that. Coaches can't do that. Another thing that coaches can't do is we cannot help you with like anything like suicidal or self-harm related. If you know, you're welcome to share those things with us, but we're going to recommend that, hey, like that's outside of our jurisdiction. That's when you would go see a mental health professional who has, you know, a little more training in those areas. Now, another reason that you might see a therapist is because there's might be a specific type of therapy that you are interested in. If you didn't know, there are different types, and different therapists can kind of specialize in different types of therapy. And so you might be looking for that specific type, and that's when you would want to go to a therapist because they've been trained in that thing, they specialize in that therapy, and that is, you know, what you might be looking for. Now, a reason that you might see a coach is because you don't want to drag up all of your past. I think sometimes that's one of the pain points or one of the problems that you can find with therapy is that it either brings up too much at once or it feels like you're talking in circles and getting nowhere. I've heard it both ways. My personal experience with therapy was that it did not bring up anything. And that was my struggle, was I felt like we were wasting all our time talking about day-to-day stuff when I wanted to get to the deeper root, and it just wasn't coming out in therapy. And I was trying to express that to my therapist, and I just didn't know how to get it to like click or communicate clearly. And I also didn't have a listening ear back then, so that was like my only listening ear, and I probably ranted the whole time. But all that to say, I see these two extremes in people's story about, why therapy didn't work for them. For me, it didn't work because I wasn't getting anywhere. We were just talking in circles and talking in circles. And I tried medication and it just made me feel worse. And so for me, that wasn't the answer. And so I started turning to more holistic answers. And that's when you want to go more into the coaching realm or even into functional medicine realm, because that's when you're going to get more of those holistic health options. And then coaching is also a good fit when you want to make a plan for the future, when you're like, I don't want to just talk in circles, and I also don't want to drag up all my trauma at once and like re-sift through it all. That can be too overwhelming. And so the point of coaching is that we're working on one thing at a time. It's very clear. It's very strategic. Like there's a plan, there's a method to it. There's usually specific tools that we're implementing one at a time, right? And so we're also, therapy, they sometimes teach you tools, but in my experience, they weren't teaching me tools. In my experience, I might get a tool here or there, after I've done like 8 sessions, I might have like 2 tools or something. But when you're doing coaching, we're actually teaching you, at least with my coaching. My goal is that you don't become dependent on me as the coach. And I think sometimes therapy fails in that too. And even some coaches fail in that, as like they just keep coaching you, but they don't explain to you why what's working is working in coaching. And so you don't learn to do it for yourself. My goal is that I'm equipping you with the tools and the knowledge you need so that eventually one day you don't feel like you need to keep paying me. You feel like you can do this on your own. That is always my goal, is to empower you to take care of your own mental health, your own spiritual health, your own physical health, etc., your own relational healths. Jeez, sorry, I couldn't talk there for a second. But anyways, I think also it's just a really good idea for you to kind of get to know who you are going to be working with. And I think that's a benefit of working with a coach, is you get to know them through their content or their podcast or their blog. You guys get to listen to these podcasts. You get to know me before you ever decide to work with me, versus if you're just booking with your local therapist, you might not have a way to get to know them before you start working with them, which can be another downside of therapy. So now I do want to say that sometimes you need both, and it's totally okay, and honestly maybe even in your benefit to have both, and to be doing maybe a combination of traditional therapy and traditional antidepressants or anxiety meds with, coaching and maybe some functional medicine. Why not combine it all? If you're really struggling, I think that can really help you to get out of that season. Sometimes you need all those things. And I don't think that, those traditional medicines are a fix-all forever, because they don't solve the root problem. But sometimes you can use them in the temporary to get you through while you're also doing that deeper healing work. So I want to encourage you, wherever this is landing with you, wherever you're seeing yourself leaning towards here, I want you to take this to the Lord. Whether you have no clue or you're leaning one way or the other, just ask him what it is he wants you to do, because he does have insight for you. The Lord's word is true. It's living, it's breathing, and it says that if you ask him for wisdom, he will give it to you. Psalms 32:8 says, I will make you wise. I will show you where to go. I will guide you and watch over you. And then there's also a verse, I believe it's in Isaiah, that says, this is the way, walk in it. And so the Lord will guide you. Just trust him in that and believe he is faithful and good to do so. And if coaching is the right next step for you, if you feel the Lord calling to you that, then I just want to remind you guys that there is a buy one, get one free sale going on right now, which is not normal. That is totally not normal. You can buy 2 calls for the price of 1, plus get my healing journey tracker spreadsheet, which is beautiful and completely integrated and done for you, set up so that you can track
Hey
all
friend,
of your,
I hope you enjoyed
your
today's
triggers,
episode.
your emotions,
If you did,
the
would you
tools
take
you're
30
using, how the
seconds and
tools
leave
are
me a
working,
review on Apple Podcasts
etc., your
so more people
prayers,
can
your
find the healing they
gratitude,
need?
all of
Also,
that in
please
one
come join
single
us in the
spreadsheet
Facebook group
between the
where we
sessions.
support and we pray for each other
So
regularly.
you get
It
that
lights
second
me up
session
to know
free,
that this
plus the
podcast is
tracker.
helping you.
So that is
All right,
brings
I'm
it
off
out
to go hide in my closet with a journal and
$247
my
value
Bible.
right
I'll meet
there,
you
if
back in
not
a few
more.
days for another
And
episode.
right now you
See
can
you
buy
then.
it for $97. So go to the link in the show notes below where you can type coaching.micaiahgray.com into your search bar, and it'll take you to the sales page where you can read over everything that's included, who this is for, who it is not for, how it will help you, and you can get that scheduled right away. The sale is only going on through till the end of Saturday night. So go get your spot booked now. There is limited spots because I can only take so many coaching calls a week right now. But we do have multiple spots left. So go and grab yours now before the sale is over. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in the next episode.